What is going on, gamers? This is John, and welcome back to the third and final video in this concert photography series. In the first video, we talked about picking out lenses, renting gear, and preparing for concerts. In the second video, we went inside of the photo pit with a little POV action, and now we will conclude with the last step of the process, which is editing dem photos. This will mainly be a narration of the processes that I take when preparing photos for delivery, though there should still be plenty to be learned. Sounds good? Alright, sick. Feels good. Fuck. Okay, alright, you know what? Let's just get this over with. Real quick, I'd like to thank again the sponsor of this video series, Photo Rental Source. Photo Rental Source is a Houston rental house where you can rent equipment like cameras, lenses, lighting, and more. So thank you again, Photo Rental Source, for hooking it up. Okay, so we're gonna start with this shot of Luke right here on stage, and this shot you saw in the previous video, but we're gonna talk about how we got to this look. So, of course, the first step that I always take is adjusting all the exposure controls. You can see in the top right corner that I'm adjusting the different highlights and shadows and different white and black balances on the shot, trying to preserve as much detail as possible while still maintaining that very dynamic look between the black and white values. So, in order to do that a little bit further, I jump into the tone curve right after I feel like I've gotten a decent balance, and here you can get a little bit more specific with which parts of the image that you'd like to affect. So you can see that I'm doing a very basic S-curve, looking at the details now, and just overall adjusting sharpness levels and doing a little noise reduction. Come back up here and bring down those highlights a little bit. If you can see, it was kind of blowing out right on his skin and hands there. Looking at the before and after, kind of getting an idea of where we're at, you know, adjust some profile corrections, adjust for the lens distortion, and see if we can level out the photo in the transform tab. I'm gonna crop in a little bit to make Luke a little bit more prominent in this frame. I still like the aspect ratio. I like that this is a horizontal or a landscape type photo. But yeah, I think this is about as much as we can get done here in Lightroom. So now we're going to come over here and bring it into Photoshop. And we're gonna start getting rid of some of these little details that surround the image that, while may not take away too much from the overall look, I just feel like it can clutter it a little bit. And this is just going to be a very simple cleanup around here. Since these areas are pretty dominated by shadows and just being really dark, I'm just going to get rid of some of these little highlighted points and just give that real sense of just, it is just dark, and the only thing to focus on is what's right in front of you, which is Luke and the production. And yeah, as you can see, not a whole lot has to be done. In here, I open up my frequency separation action to go in and do some adjustments on his skin. Now, please let it be known that when I come in and do these adjustments on artists' skin, it's not because they don't have good skin. However, whenever you take pictures or take portraits of artists or just people in general, and you start cranking up those sharpening masks and you start cranking up those clarity sliders and things like that, well, it can bring out some things that may not be as flattering, such as, you know, a blemish or things like stubble, for example. But yeah, so looking good here. And now we are going to do something that I'm not really familiar with. I'm gonna add this little like overlay of dust and debris. And the reason why I want to do that is because I said in the previous video that I kind of like the way that it has this outer space intergalactic look to it. I just really like the way that the whole set looks. It looks like you're inside of a spaceship. So I'm gonna do this little dust overlay and kind of create this idea, or I guess infer that we are in outer space, and these little sparkling, twinkling things in the background are stars, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know what I'm talking about at this point, but to give that effect, have to go and erase those dust marks and those sparkles per se off of Luke, because then it's obvious that I just put something right on top of everything. So we're gonna delete this from the foreground. We're gonna delete all of these specks and these debris from the front of the photo, and we're just gonna leave it behind Luke and behind the production. That way it's something of more of like a texture in the background, and you're not focusing on all of the distressed scratches and things like that in the foreground. Looking good. Put it back into Lightroom. Very straightforward, very simple, very that's what it is. It's very like the shot. Let's move on. Okay, so now comes our second image, which is a huge crowd shot. I took this from front of house, or where the soundboard is behind the audience, and man, I mean, look, like look at how insane this show was. Again, I'm just in love. I'm enamored with this production. We're gonna start with adjusting the level. We are going to fix that crookedness because I am not perfect. I am only a human being, and it was very crooked when I took the shot. So after adjusting that, gonna go and bring down those highlights, because we want to see what's going on stage. More importantly, we want to see Ashton in the back there, and those lights were just so hardcore that couldn't really see what was going on. And once we've got a good adjustment there, then we're gonna come back into the tone curve, gonna create that oldie but a goodie S-curve right there, and I'm gonna bring down some of the shadows, gonna increase those highlights, and we are going to adjust the cutoff point by crushing the white and crushing those shadows as well. And then, of course, gonna go into the sharpening layer, and we're gonna adjust that sharpness. We are really far from the stage, but we still wanna boost up that sharpness level so we can see all the band members. And then we're gonna come into the calibration window, where we will adjust the saturation levels and the different hue levels for all of these different channels. I just wanna get a really nice, good, evenly balanced and warm shot. So I'm gonna go over here and make sure that it looks clean and balanced. And with that balance, we're gonna go and adjust the white balance. And yeah, I would say that this looks pretty good. I'm gonna come in and play around with the different color channels and the tone curve, and just get that balanced look. Right now we are still looking a little magenta, or a little green in those shadows. So doing what we can to play around with the different color sliders and things of that sort, so that we can get it nice and pretty looking. Alright, sick. Now that we have a pretty decently balanced and exposed and colored and sharpened image, we are going to bring it back into Photoshop and do some further adjustments. Now, like with the previous photo, I wanted to go around the frame and around the edges and see if there are any elements that I personally could consider to be any sort of distraction. So we're gonna start right here. 100%. I do not like that security guard just hanging out, and I don't like that person right there who's just kind of chilling and looking at me. So we are deleting them from my life and from the universe, and we are going to come around here and get rid of, what is that, a speaker? Yeah, I don't know. With this, I have no real reason for deleting the details of this wall and those speakers. If you can kind of look in that background, I have no real justification for getting rid of that. I could just say that I feel like This image is really, really great for just showing the stage and the band in front of the audience, and it kind of looks like they're also just kind of floating in this otherworldly kind of situation scenario. It's just the stage and the crowd. Kind of gets rid of the whole venue vibe. I could say all of that, but realistically, I just want it to be flat and black around the edges of this photo. It's got a nice flat and clean look, and gonna come in and adjust the we're gonna throw in a tone curve in here and adjust that contrast and bring it back in. Look at the before and after, and yeah, I would say that we definitely did some work here. Good job, everyone. I knew we had it in us. Looks great. Alrighty, lastly but not leastly, we are going to look at this shot of my goal because A, why wouldn't you, and B, it's another pretty straightforward shot, and I already like the framing and tone of it as is. So starting with the exposure tools, we are going to brighten it up and add some contrast to keep the black levels nice and dark. I'm gonna just overall play with the temperature and tint a bit to get a more natural look, especially on his skin. Gonna bump up the clarity just a bit for some detail, and then take away some saturation because why not? You already know that I'm gonna put in a nice S-curve with the tone curve over here, and I'm just gonna play around until I like the look. And then we're gonna jump into the details and sharpen it up just a smidge. Apply a quick profile correction, and then we are going to get it nice and leveled out. Okay, so for the lighting and colors that we have here, we're gonna mess around with the calibration panel a bit. Really just adjusting the different values and sliders until we find a pleasing combination of color adjustments that we find pleasing. Okay, so referencing the before and afters, we're just gonna go on and tweak whatever needs tweaking. Okay, so the main thing that I see now is the noise in the shadows. We're getting quite a bit of grain in this photo, which isn't always a bad thing to have grain, but for this in particular, I am going for more of a cleaner look, so we're gonna jump back into the detail panel, and I'm gonna add some more noise reduction and see how it looks. And wow, yeah, that right there already made such a big difference, and for this look in particular, I prefer this right over here. Zooming out now, we're gonna do just a few more adjustments, and then we are going to call it a day. That's it, everyone. That is all that we have for this series. Man, I really hope that you enjoyed this video, even though it was definitely more of a narration edit than it was a specific tutorial. I still hope that you were able to take away something, even if it was just from observing my overall process. I'm very happy with how the photos turned out. I'm very happy that I got the chance to shoot 5 Seconds of Summer, and I'm very happy that I was able to do this project in general. I've said it before, and I'll say it again, I truly am lucky that I get to do what I do, so being able to share all of this with everyone, it means a lot to me. And with that concludes this video series. I'd really like to thank Photo Rental Source again for sponsoring this project. I'd like to thank Crystal for making this dream of mine into a reality, and I'd definitely like to thank you all for joining me along for this ride. If you liked this series, please like this video, leave a comment with any and all thoughts, questions, whichever, and of course, please consider subscribing to this channel because I may or may not already have a couple other artists and ideas lined up for a follow-up. More on that to come. Okay, bye.